So thank you all for joining us today. We are gathered to talk about starting the school year off right, because believe it or not, summer is
Espérate,
coming to a
mamá.
close. And we'll spend the next hour talking about pyramid model and
Eh,
supporting you all beginning the new school year with children. You all already got the notification that this is being recorded so that we can share it with folks that weren't able to join us during this hour. And this is also just an acknowledgement that you'll see closed captioning running in Spanish language to offer translation to providers that would prefer to engage in this material in Spanish. And you can see on the screen here,
Espérate,
if you're not seeing that pop up
déjame ver.
automatically, you can go to the bottom bar. There should be a button that you can click. The
Voy.
purple arrow is highlighting it um, with
Mm,
CC, which stands for closed captioning, and that will just allow you to select show or hide the captions. And if we could just make sure that everyone who's participating is muted for background, that would be great.
No sé dónde no lo puedo hacer en Castle.
This is an acknowledgement that this webinar and the corresponding effort to support pyramid model throughout childcare in our state is supported by our team. We are the PEAK, or Parent Infant Early Childhood team within the Innovations Institute at the University of Connecticut School of Social Work. And all of this work is funded by our partners at the Office of Early Childhood and we do this work in partnership with our state leadership team known as the Connecticut Pyramid Model Partnership. We'd love to hear about you all and what brought you to this webinar. As we hope that you know, this is the first of a series that we hope to host monthly to delve into different topics related to pyramid model. And we thought, since this is the transition into a new school year, this was a great topic to start with. But if you would let us know in the chat your name, the age of children that you teach or work with, and what is one favorite thing that you have about the beginning of a school year. So we'll give folks a few minutes to type that in the chat. This gives me the opportunity also to
Vente,
just highlight that in the chat you have two documents. So one
toma.
is a copy of the
Ven,
slides in Spanish for anyone that would like to have that um,
toma,
uh, during this time to
toma.
look at. And the second is a list of resources
Ya,
and links that we'll talk through
ok,
throughout the course
toma.
of today.
Ok, toma. Ven.
So again, if anyone is willing, just a prompt to put in the chat your name, the age of children that you teach and work with, and what is one of your favorite things about the beginning of a new school
Ah,
year.
toma. ¿No quiere mandar?
Pre-K to fifth grade, so that's a large span. At the fall weather is delightful. We have the beginnings of that today, and it feels really nice. Christy typed in that her center serves children 12 weeks through kindergarten. So again, a large span as well. Always have fun to help teachers learn about their new children and set goals for the coming year. Yeah, it's a fresh start, right? Um, I love the exuberance of children and families. Yeah, the excitement. Again, transitions can be a lot and a lot of planning goes into them, but they can offer an opportunity for new excitement. Donna saying that she loves the feel of new beginnings. And Donna, the webinar is really for anyone who's supporting kids and families as well. So we're hopeful that this is helpful, even though you're not in a teaching role right now. There's lots of folks throughout the state that are supporting teachers or supporting families. The excitement of a new year and with new learning, making new friends for children. Uh, the opportunity to meet new families and children, build new relationships and support transitions. learning about a new environment, new staff, reconnecting with colleagues. Yeah. So many of your answers, I think, reinforce the fact that a lot of the strategies that we'll talk about that are important for young kids are important for adults as well. Relationships, environment, all those things. So thanks for putting that all in the chat. If you haven't had the opportunity to meet us yet, I'll take a minute to just introduce our role and our team. As I said, all of our work is under contract and supported by the Office of Early Childhood, and we are within the School of Social Work at UConn. My name is Kate, and you'll hear in a minute or two from Rachel and Liz, who you see there, and we're part of a larger team that is doing statewide work to support pyramid model training, coaching, dissemination, and evaluation of all that work so that we can show the impact. Um, our goal for this next hour, and as I said, this is the first topic that we're focusing on, and we'll intend to focus on a given topic in each month and kind of delve into how pyramid model supports those practices um, for an hour with you all. But our agenda today is to give a brief overview of the pyramid model framework for anyone that is new to it, and then really focus on, acknowledging that the beginning of a school year is a big transition. How do we pull out some of the key principles of pyramid model to support you all in your work with kids and families and educators and colleagues so that is a successful transition. And as I said, and you've already really highlighted those two things within your responses in the chat, we'll focus on strategies related to relationships and strategies related to environment. This is just a visual of the key principles within the pyramid model that I'll talk through here, but it's a public health framework that's really focused on supporting the social emotional needs and development of young kids in a range of care settings. And it rests on the foundation of inclusivity, cultural responsivity, and anti-racist and anti-bias practices. So how are we thinking universally about these approaches and really intentionally thinking about being anti-racist and anti-biased in our responses to children and their needs and behavior. It's rooted in social and emotional development as a foundation for all other developmental domains. In our world, there's so much focus on getting kids ready for kindergarten or school readiness, foundations of learning, and those are often demonstrated with pressure around, acquisition of reading and writing skills. And what we know is that all of that is really reliant on a strong social and emotional developmental foundation, meaning that kids need the ability to navigate the environment, to regulate their emotions, to absorb things from those around them, and that's how they acquire all those skills, and that you can't do that without the skills of identifying emotions and holding on to regulation and those pieces. So that social emotional development isn't only pulled in when needed, it's really the foundation for that work. And a lot of the pyramid model helps with skills and strategies for educators to do that. Another principle of the model is that children need to be taught these skills so that, we would never expect a child to understand how to read or understand math um, uh, problems without some intentional teaching. And in our society, we've often not held the same strategies to social emotional skills, to understanding behavior, expectations, maintaining rules, et cetera. And so a lot of what the pyramid model strategies do is pull in teaching of those domains and the transition that you see for individual kids and for classrooms and program wide. Is really impactful when those strategies are embedded through teaching as well. Another principle is that behavior is communication, so it can feel hard in the moment. It can be, off-putting, it can be upsetting, et cetera, but that it's communicating a need for that child. So how do we understand it in that way and be responsive? And that the pyramid model practices are in service of child's social emotional development, but all really focus on adult behavior. When adult behavior changes, the child's behavior changes, and that rarely is it the reverse. So a lot of our strategies are focused on the adults in the room. This is just a visual of the model itself. Again, we're going to focus on the two concepts within the tier one or the blue part of the pyramid, but and we'll talk through many sections of these and throughout our series of webinars with you all. But the intention here is to really focus on universal practices first and most, and then triage into individual or targeted interventions when needed. And I'm going to transition over to Rachel, who's going to talk about some of these strategies.
Thanks so much, Kate. So, as Kate said, we're really going to talk today about relationships and attention to the environment. And so, within our focus on relationships, we're going to think about this in a couple of different ways: our relationships with children, how you can support relationship development among children in the classroom, um, supporting development of relationships with families and having family partnerships, and then also thinking about relationships among teachers and providers in the room. Then Liz is going to talk more about the environment. So she's going to talk about classroom setup and room arrangement, as well as schedules, routines, expectations, and rules. And I just want to note, we have 45 minutes left in our time for today. And if the sort of full training on tier one is many hours, I can't remember how many hours it is, it's several. So I just say that with sort of a caveat of, we're going to just kind of touch on these things and try to give a couple of examples of strategies. And as Kate mentioned as well, throughout this series, we're going to be sort of diving into to several kind of specific examples along the way, or specific topics along the way. And sorry, I just saw as well in the chat, slides and discussions be emailed as well. So Liz just put the slides in the chat, or the Spanish slides. Do we have a PDF of the slides in English as well that we have?
I can do that now.
Okay, thanks, Liz. And then I will also put again, because when you join Zoom, anything that has been put in the chat already, you're not able to see. So I just put again the resources in the chat, and that has clickable links to the resources that we're going to talk about today, as well as several other things related to the pyramid model in Connecticut. All right, so we can move to the next slide, please. So the pyramid model focuses a lot on relationships. We talk a lot about, it really being a relational model. And so why do we do that? Why do we spend so much time focusing on relationships? For one thing, if we work on good relationships with teammates, with families, with children, it really helps to create an inclusive and equitable classroom. And so one thing that, we talk about a great deal too when we talk about relationships is, how are you thinking about relationships with all children in the classroom, with all families, right? And for all of us, certain relationships are sort of easier to develop than others. We're humans, and we naturally sort of click with some children or with some families more than others. A lot of times that can be children or families who look like us, sound like us, feel like they come from a similar background as us. So really too, as we talk about relationships, I really encourage you to think about, not only how do you sort of develop relationships with children when it's, sort of easy, but how do you really think about working relationally when it's a little bit more difficult, or you don't feel sort of an instant connection with a child or with a family? We also focus on relationships because they are truly the foundation of social emotional development. And so it's just it's like, without good relationships, it is really quite difficult to kind of build on anything else. Good relationships in the classroom help build trust. And also, good relationships really help support positive behavior. And so, I know a lot of times when we talk about or when we offer, sort of trainings or webinars or things like that, related to behavior, there's a lot of interest. We certainly understand that there are a lot of difficult things that teachers are experiencing in the classroom related to behavior, and just really want to emphasize that positive relationships can really have such a positive impact on children's behavior, and we understand and certainly, empathize with the fact that that's really important, and that's what brings a lot of folks here. So those are some reasons that we focus on relationships. Now we're going to talk about kind of a couple of different examples of how to do this and how to think about this among kind of the different categories, right? So as you think about developing relationships with children, developing relationships with the children in your classroom, kind of first and foremost, and I think this is something that teachers are often told, and sometimes it's easy to forget, or it's easy to, it's uncomfortable to get down at eye level sometimes. But first and foremost, right, like we're big people relative to children. So let's get down on children's eye level and speak really calmly to them. One of the things that we talk about in Pyramid Model a great deal is the adults' regulation and how important calm adults are to having calm children in the room. So really sort of thinking about tone and pace when we're speaking with children. How do we show respect and consideration and warmth to all children? Again, sometimes this will come very naturally with some children, and with some children, you really might have to kind of think about how you can approach this in a way to help facilitate your relationship. And so, ensuring that you're interacting with individual children, verbally during routines and activities, having conversations with them and engaging in play, using questions to extend play with whatever it is that they're engaging with in the classroom. Using a child's home language in verbal interactions. So if you have a child who speaks a language besides English at home, really trying to, to learn some of those key words or key phrases in the child's home language so that you can use those in the classroom. And talking about the child's interests, right? Kids love to talk about things that are interesting to them. And one of the things that we often talk with teachers about is it can be really easy to sort of just talk about like the routine or the sort of thing that you're going through. But when you take the time to ask children about their interests or their family or things like that, things beyond just, again, kind of the task at hand, that really helps facilitate relationships, and really trying to attend to and respond to children's cues. And so Kate was, talking earlier about behavior being communication. Children give us a lot of cues about how they're doing. And so, if you see a child who's upset, being able to kind of take note of that and attend to that, respond to that. And conversely, if they're excited about something, right? I think sometimes we also, it's important to remember that when their children are showing a lot of enthusiasm or excitement about something, that it's important to respond to those cues as well, not just the cues that let us know that something's off. One way that we can, another kind of like example about supporting good relationships with children is frequently giving them positive descriptive feedback. And so Kate, we can jump to the next slide. And so this goes beyond, good job, things that are sort of like this general reinforcement, but to really giving specific positive feedback about something that you're seeing that the child's doing. And so these are just some examples on the slide, something like, excellent idea. You solved the problem of everyone wanting the tall blocks by sharing, right? That's so much more specific and really lets the child know, what they're being reinforced for, compared to great job. You did a great job with that. It's like, oh, what did I do that was such a great job? Or what a good friend. You helped Alicia when she fell. You counted exactly the correct number of napkins we needed for lunch. Thank you, Eleanor, for using your insight voice when getting your friend's attention. Mateo, you're sitting with your legs crossed and in your own square, right? So these are really specific positive feedback. And it also, it's really letting the children know when they're doing sort of the things that you're wanting or asking them to do. These things that are highlighted in orange, these are resources. So we have a resource on positive descriptive feedback. And that again is linked in the resource handout that we put in the chat. We'll also send all of these things out after the webinar as well. But if you want to see some examples of what positive descriptive feedback can look like, that's a great place to look. The next thing that we're going to talk about is relationships among children. And so some children, as with all skills, some children will sort of naturally have skills related to, developing friendships and relationships with each other. And some will maybe need some additional support. But there are things that we can do within the classroom that also just really help kind of facilitate and support children developing relationships with each other. One is having materials in the classroom that really promote play between, several children. So things like, having telephones in the classroom, blocks, puzzles, those are all great things that children might enjoy playing with another friend. Also center activities that promote playing with other children can be really helpful, having a restaurant set up or food set up, having some sort of vet office scenario or doctor's office, having a party planning center where kids can, sort of work together to plan a party or something like that. And you can also structure, this is something that we tend to see a little bit less of and certainly really encourage, is structuring buddy activities or pair activities to, again, really intentionally help children work together. And so things like having children pair up to do an art project together, or having walking partners, as you walk outside to the playground or to different areas of the building, or creating cleanup partners, and these are things that you might switch on a daily basis or weekly basis, where you're really, again, intentionally pairing children together to help support their development of relationships with their peers in the classroom. The next piece that we're going to talk about is supporting relationships with families. And this is a quote from Walter Gilliam that we like to share. I've never seen a case where a child was expelled or suspended from a childcare or preschool setting when the parents and teachers knew and liked each other. Not once. And it just is, it's really important and such a crucial sort of piece of children experiencing success when there are good relationships and engagement between the family and the classroom or the center. And so again, while these sort of examples are not exhaustive, we are going to talk about a couple of different ways that we can do this. And actually, this might be a good time too. I would love to hear, because I think this is also something that we hear frequently from providers, which is like, how do we do, what are some good ways to do this? And so if you're sitting there thinking, oh, you know what, that's something we do a really good job with, whether it's as a program, we do a good job with it, or I, as a teacher, feel like that's an area where I'm really strong. I do a good job developing relationships with the families of children in our classroom. Please drop those in the chat. It's always helpful to see other ideas. And would, again, just love to get some additional thoughts about the ways in which your program or you as a teacher help develop relationships with families. So I'm going to give that just a minute and see if we can get a few ideas in the chat before we continue on. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, starting the year with a family collage activity. I love that. Yep, Pam, pictures of families, absolutely. Thank you all for getting us started. Stephanie, first day phone calls, newsletters, inviting them in to share traditions. I love that. Stephanie, that's a great example. I love that thought about having families come in and share traditions. That's so cool. Kate, family volunteer opportunities. It helps family members feel more comfortable in the classroom setting. Yeah, absolutely. I hope you'll keep putting ideas in the chat. Again, it's just helpful for other people to see things that are working well for you and to give some ideas. So if other things come up, please don't hesitate to drop those in as well. But as we think about relationships with families, there are some really sort of like core beliefs or core tenets that the pyramid model promotes in terms of like how we think about families. One is that families are a child's first teacher, right? And so the idea that that is really the place where children learn first, and that families know their children best. And as such, it's really important that families are engaged and that families should share in decision making about what's going on with their child, or if their child's having a challenge, and the teachers identifying strategies to support that child. Families should really be involved in that, but should also share in decision making about things like class rules, or sort of expectations in the class. So not just when things are sort of challenging, but also just sort of generally, families should share in decision making about how things are going in the classroom. I see a couple more. We're getting ready to talk about some more strategies. So I saw a couple more strategies come up in the chat and just want to note those. Pam wrote star student, show and tell bags. I love that. And about your teacher handout. Yeah, we actually, I got an about our kids started school. My kids started school yesterday. And they're a little bit older. They're not considered sort of early childhood anymore. They're elementary children. But for one of my kids, he brought home an about your teacher handout. And I really appreciated that. Was just, happy to learn a little bit more about his teacher and her background. Yeah, Liz wrote, I love the first day phone calls, starting out with connection on their hardest day. Absolutely. Family game nights, that's cool, Alexa. That's one that I haven't heard a whole lot. What a fun way to bring folks together. And Rebecca noted meeting the teacher day, get to know you and your child paper. Yeah. Also first day calls or email to parents, invite parents to volunteer. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that invitation is really important. There might be some parents who sort of naturally inquire about, or sort of say like, how can I be involved, or how could I help? But some parents might sort of wait to be asked. And so I think that invitation to volunteer is also really important. Here are some additional strategies, and a lot of these I think have been mentioned already. Having families represented. Several people talked about pictures in the classroom, creating opportunities for families to participate in the classroom, establishing methods for reciprocal communication. So I think things like emails and phone calls do that. A lot of times folks talk about, well, we send a sheet home at the end of the day, kind of saying like how things went. And that's nice. That's good information to have. And also we really encourage you to think about, and how do parents or caregivers give you information back? What is kind of like the line of communication where if they want to share something with you, how are they able to do that? And so again, for example, something like an email, if email is an option where teachers are able to, check their email with some frequency, that's helpful so that caregivers know that they can send an email, to provide some information. And then one thing too that we also just really want to highlight is finding ways to share celebrations and to share successes. It is frequently the case that if things are a challenge, right, we're going to let parents know about that, and there are maybe some established sort of procedures for that, or ways that we let parents know if something, if a child is having a challenge or having some difficulty. But also, you know, as a parent, we love to hear the good things too. And it can be easy to forget that. It can be easy to really focus on, you know, making sure that someone knows if something is a challenge or if there is a difficulty. So really encourage you to think about, how are you letting parents know when there has been some success or some sort of celebration? And even if it's small, right? It doesn't have to be always about something that's really large, but just something small that you saw that happened, you know, throughout the day, or some progress that you're seeing. How are you finding ways to share that information with families? Here again, there are a couple of links for family engagement strategies, and here's an All About My Child page. There are lots of these out in the world, the All About My Child page. So, you know, certainly if there's one that you use and like, that's great. But again, these two resources are also linked in that PDF that we put in the chat with other resources. And then the last piece about relationships that I'm going to talk about before turning it over to Liz to talk about environments, and this is something that I think gets talked about a little bit less, is relationships among teachers or providers, the people in the room, right? And so the reality is that adults are always modeling, even if we don't want to be or don't think that we are. Adults are always modeling relationship skills. And 100%, if there is tension or conflict or difficulty between, you know, the adults who are sort of running the show, whether that's teacher and co-teacher, or, you know, whatever the setup is, the children feel that. They feel when there's conflict or tension. And so it is really important to intentionally focus on the relationship, again, between the adults who are in the room. So really thinking about trying to get to know your colleagues, making it a point to model kindness, and really thinking intentionally about that. Establishing some ways to collaborate and work together to develop your guidance principles, and, you know, making sure that you're on the same page about what that's going to look like. Defining the roles. So who's, you know, sort of who's doing what, who's responsible for what piece, what are our classroom procedures going to be? Again, just having a good sense of who's responsible for what, and are we on the same page, and really working together towards sort of our common goals. Really actively working to understand how culture and experience shape our communication and the way that we engage in relationships, because that's something that's really important, right? We show up in relationships, all of us show up in relationships in different ways, depending on our background, our experience, our values, our culture. And so leading with curiosity, right? In terms of kind of thinking about how your coworkers relate and engage with you. And this resource that's here, the Classroom Collaboration and Work Style Guide, is just something to help kind of like structure conversation between, if you're maybe working with a new teacher this year, or even if you've been working with someone for a while but feel like it might be helpful to really kind of, you know, you identify sort of how you work, and the other person, you know, identifies how they work, and it can really help facilitate a conversation where you all kind of, you know, find middle ground and really think about, again, some of that kind of structure and procedure that will help your classroom run really smoothly. So again, that's something that's linked in that PDF as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Liz to talk about the environment.
Thanks, Rachel. So the tier 1 of the pyramid model, again, focuses on the universal proactive strategies that adults use to promote the social emotional development of all children. And the second part of that tier is the environment. So we are trying to create high quality supportive environments. And the reason that we do this is because children thrive on predictability and consistency. They want to know what's happening, what to expect next, how they can be a part of that activity. It really being intentional about the activities that you create and facilitate between children and between you and children. Being intentional about how children, what the skills are that children are going to be learning from that activity. And when they're able to feel confident in knowing what to expect, in being able to engage in the activities in a developmentally appropriate way, they develop a sense of confidence and competence. And it really helps them, that piece really helps to negate some of those power struggles when kids feel like they're strong, they're confident, they're able to do the things that they're being asked to do. And then safety is another reason why we focus on the environment. We want the environment to be supportive. We want it to promote safety. And we want kids to feel like they know what to expect when they walk into that classroom every day. So supporting the schedules on routines, having consistent routines, really, and having classrooms that are designed for the children, the specific children and their specific needs in the classroom really helps them feel safe in their environment. We can go to the next slide. So some of the different pieces that make up the environmental supports are room arrangement, schedules, routines, rules, and expectations. So the high quality supportive environments are not just about the physical space of the classroom. That is a piece of it, but it's also about ensuring that our activities, our schedules, our rules, what we expect of the children are intentional and support their development. So we're going to talk through each of these a little bit more. The first piece is room setup. So as you're thinking about the beginning of the school year, or you know, when children move up to your classroom from the younger age group, and you're resetting up the classroom for a new group of children. Ensuring that you're designing the physical environment to promote engagement. So that means having enough centers to accommodate the number of children in the classroom and within those centers. Creating clear boundaries in the centers so that children know where they should be when they are playing in that particular area. Helps, you know, keep them in a space. Materials are developmentally appropriate and adequate in number and variety. So ensuring that all of the toys, I like to say, all of the items within reach of the children are touchable. They're developmentally appropriate. They're meant for that age group, and it's okay if they touch it. And ensuring that there's enough of each material so that children can have positive interactions with each other while playing. No wide open spaces for children to run, I think it's a challenge in some classrooms to set up without having a runway. But that is one of the first things, if children are running around the classroom, one of the first things to do is just stand there and look and see if there is a space that looks like a runway for them, because they will find it and they will use it. So just designing the flow of your classroom to be supportive. And then making sure your group area is defined with enough space to accommodate the number of children. That is often a place where physical interaction happens between young children. So ensuring that everyone has their own space, their own bubble, can be helpful in creating group time that is meaningful and engaging. The next piece our schedule. So creating a schedule that is intentional and ensures that children know about all of the major activities of the day. It should be visual, use their home language. So I like the examples of schedules that have pictures and language, and making sure that kids know what is happening next. So the schedule should be at their eye level. They should have some sort of interaction with it on a regular basis throughout the day. You should, refer to it in the morning, let them know what their day is going to be. And it seems redundant to keep doing it every day, but they need that. They really need to be reminded on a daily basis. They're coming from home where their schedule is completely different. Their activities and expectations are completely different. So just a little reminder before you get your day started can be really helpful. And also before each activity can be really helpful. And then ensuring that if there's changes to the schedule, if you usually play for 15 minutes in the block center and you know that you can build 2 towers and your friend can build 2 towers and you're super looking forward to that, and then something changes and you have to go outside early, that can be really upsetting. So just letting kids know ahead of time if changes occur. And then developing a balanced schedule. So ensuring that you are creating a balance of active activities and more quiet activities, a balance of adult-led activities and child-led activities. I always like to say, if you can possibly create your schedule in a way that children get to move their bodies in the morning, whether it's indoors or outdoors, you'll have a more successful day. And really, really figuring out a way that works for you and your children to engage with the schedule as a reminder before each activity and at the beginning of the day. The next slide is a short video that just shows a teacher interacting with the visual schedule. Notice that it's very low on the wall and is right at the children's eye level. And this just shows how she uses it to transition.
You ready? Let's look at our schedule. Let's see. Did we all come to school today? Did mommies and daddies come and sign us in and bring us to school? That's Bentley. Arrival time is over. Finished. Did we have breakfast this morning? What did you have for breakfast this morning, Armani? We had applesauce and had cereal. Breakfast time is over. I see it's torn. It's okay. Finished. Did you brush your teeth, Armani? Darwin, did you brush your teeth this morning? Toothbrush time is over. Finished. Let's see what's going to happen next. Let's look. Now it's time to go take a walk. We're going to go have some active time. Let's go to the door. Let's go to the door so we can take a walk. Are you ready? Let's go to the door. Time for active time.
I love that video because it shows the children interacting with the schedule and the adult talking about what has already occurred, what's coming next, and there are visuals to show once an item is accomplished. And then I like that as an example because it shows how she just keeps things moving. Even if children are distracted, she just keeps going. So the next piece that contributes to a supportive environment are routines. So your schedule is just a collection of routines. So each part of your schedule is a main part of your day. So mealtime, bathroom time, circle time, and within each of those scheduled activities is a routine. So how do you do that activity? And when routines are consistent and predictable, children will do them the same way every time. They know what to anticipate and will know what will happen next. And that provides a sense of safety for them. And it also helps to increase their independence in learning. So if they know what to do, if they know exactly the steps to wash their hands or the steps to get ready for lunch, they feel more independent, and that in turn decreases some of the power struggles that we see. So this is just a visual example of a routine, a hand washing routine, and each individual step that is required to accomplish that routine. So expectations and rules. All classrooms, I think, most classrooms, most early childhood environments have expectations of the children, which are just really broad statements of how we would like children to interact with their peers and the environment. Rules are the specific actions we want children to take to meet those expectations. And rules can help children understand what their behavior should be, what we're expecting of them to do within different activities. So the rules of the playground might be different than the rules at lunchtime. But being consistent with those rules and that language is important. And when you teach them the expectations and the rules explicitly and intentionally, they're more likely to develop those social emotional skills and regulation. And in turn will be less likely to engage in challenging behavior. So the next couple slides just talk about expectations and rules, the difference. So expectations give the children the why, gives them general ways that you want them to act. Be kind is usually one of them. They apply to all children across all settings. A lot of times centers will have center-wide expectations that everyone is expected to meet these expectations in all of the rooms. They give the program, the school, the children, the families a shared language so that everyone knows what that statement means. And it communicates positively what you want to see happen. So we want children to respect each other. Instead of saying no hitting, we use a positive, we flip that into a positive and say respect each other. And then some of the steps to get to respecting each other are, keeping your hands to yourself. Some other examples are we stay safe, we are team players, we are peaceful. And there is a resource that is linked in the resource list that gives some examples of behavior expectations. And then to go along with expectations, we have rules. So the rules explicitly tell children what to do. They help clarify what the expectation is for each specific setting. And again, may only apply in certain settings. So playground rules probably don't apply at nap time. Some examples are we walk with our group, which could relate to the expectation of we stay safe. Keep bikes on the bike path is another one. Stay on your spot is another one that all relate to the expectation of we stay safe, or we are respectful to others. So hopefully that makes sense, the difference between rules and expectations. And there is a resource that is linked in the resource page that is some strategies for teaching rules at home. And this can be really helpful when you're starting the school year to create shared language between the school environment, the classroom care, early care environment to the home, so that kids are hearing the same thing. They know what to expect in each environment, and again, creating a shared language. So this is just a visual that shows the expectations on the left, and then what the rules might be to meet those expectations in each setting. So showing respect in the classroom means a soft touch. On the playground, it means taking turns with the bike. In the hallway, it means we use an inside voice because we don't want to wake the babies. The expectation is to stay safe. In the classroom, we move carefully. On the playground, we sit on the bikes, we sit on the slide, we sit on the swings. And in the hallway, we move carefully. So they really just tell the children how to meet that expectation. And that is a very brief, as Rachel said, tier one. The actual training is very long and very in-depth and gives you a lot more information on the tiers. But that is a brief overview of tier one. And I'm going to pass it over to Kate for a little reflection.
Thank you. Yeah, so as both Liz and Rachel said, just a little bit of sort of some key focus takeaways about relationships and environments to support the intentional planning of a good first year, or for beginning of the year rather, for yourselves and families and the children in your care. So wanted to just take a minute. We can have you all type in the chat or unmute and share as well. But what's one thing that you heard that you during this conversation that you feel most compelled to integrate into the start of your school year? What's one thing that will help you do that? And what's one thing that would change as a result? So much of pyramid model is really about, and thank you so the resources are in the chat again as well. But so much of the pyramid model, these are general sort of human interaction practices, but a lot of the work is really how do we be intentional about it? How do we, really be planful about the use of a schedule or the teaching of expectations and rules and things like that. So would love any parting thoughts before we all move on to our next task for the day of just what are some takeaways. The use of the schedule is your one takeaway from Pam. Thanks so much for starting us off. The video, what helped you sort of think that through, and one thing that will happen as a result is predictability. Yeah, absolutely. And I think don't underestimate the number of times to reinforce that schedule during the day. As Liz said, it's often used really well when you can have kids help you, markate which activities are done or not. So are they covered or are they flipped over? Relationship building and predictability are two things that stood out. Again, thank you all so much for the great ideas or sharing earlier in this hour about some of the relationship building that you do. Again, it's just a little bit of sort of effort or intentionality in those ways in the beginning of the year can often be so helpful and meaningful for families and for children. We'll give just one more moment. A couple of things are coming in the chat now. Let's see, setting children up for success. When we teach expectations and rules with visuals and to model and practice, it's helpful for that. Absolutely. Room arrangement to meet the students' needs is a big one. You can kind of see where there's opportunity for more difficulty to happen between children when there's these sort of runways of space. So sometimes it's the logistics that really help you as the leads of the classroom have those smaller spaces and more targeted time with kids. Another person is highlighting the impact of room setup to impact safety and a calmer environment. Yeah, absolutely. And the importance of routines. Those are all great takeaways. Thank you all for doing that in the chat. Another person's typing about continuing to use the schedule, building relationships with new and incoming teachers, and helping other teachers with getting on eye level and speaking to children. go over room setup for the new school year. Yeah. All great takeaways. So again, thank you for joining us for this time. We will follow up with the materials that were shared today in the chat, as well as the recording. And as I said, our intention is to begin to offer these more regularly and have a given topic be highlighted in each session. So our focus for September on the 23rd, again for an hour over lunch at noon, will be about reframing behavior. Our focus for October 21st, again at noon over lunch, will be building relationships. And then in November on the 18th at 12 at noon over lunch, we will focus on family engagement. And we'll hope to hear from you all of some of the other topics that you would like to focus on in the months that fall after that. You're absolutely welcome to reach us at any time. peak@uconn.edu reaches all of us, and happy to hear any questions or requests for resources or ideas that you all have. And again, thank you for your time today.